Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Videodrone. Today, I want to talk about an underrated and very unique musical satire from the creators of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Richard O'Brien and Jim Sharman's Shock Treatment. The Rocky Horror Picture Show was, and still is, a bona fide cult phenomenon. It may not have been the first midnight movie, but in many ways it's become the ultimate midnight movie, reliably drawing crowds night after night, year after year. Its fans famously obsess over every detail, dress as their favorite characters, sing, dance, and interact with the screen, creating a supplemental show just as exuberant as the movie itself. At the height of the film's popularity in the late 70s, demand for a sequel was naturally very high. When it finally arrived, 6 years later, it was met with muted enthusiasm, if not outright disappointment. Shock Treatment was so different in every possible way, musically, conceptually, stylistically, thematically. Fans didn't know how to react. Rocky Horror was a gothic, campy, joyous celebration of gender fluidity and sexual liberation, following all-American couple Brad and Janet, played by Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon, as their lives and traditional values are upended during a wild night spent at the mercy of the gender-bending, irresistibly charismatic Dr. Frank N. Furter, unforgettably played by Tim Curry. In Shock Treatment, we are presented with a cynical, stylized satire of repression. Brad and Janet, now played by Cliff DeYoung and Jessica Harper, find themselves trapped in a bizarre television studio, their dull marriage collapsing, as an unexpected appearance on a popular local game show makes Janet a star and gets Brad thrown in a straitjacket. Nobody's in lingerie, Tim Curry and his beloved Frankenfurter are nowhere to be seen. The thing to understand about this movie is that it was made under very different circumstances and with very different intentions from Rocky Horror. Rocky Horror happened quickly, spontaneously. It was the first musical show ever written by Richard O'Brien, at the time an obscure, struggling actor. His ambition was to pay loving tribute to his adolescent passion for B-movies and rock and roll, express his own personal feelings toward gender roles and the glamour of subverting them. Nobody expected the show, or the movie, to become a runaway hit. Nobody thought its presence would last as long as it has. Once it took off, suddenly, O'Brien was an icon. This first-time writer was now under tremendous pressure to follow up his unlikely triumph with something equally exceptional. Ask yourself, how does a person make lightning strike twice? The process of creating the follow-up could not have been less spontaneous. O'Brien ran through several rejected drafts, initially attempting to resurrect Frankenfurter and pick up right where the original film left off. The concept went in a different direction after much of the original cast could not be convinced to return. O'Brien had to rewrite the script once more when the first attempt at production was cancelled due to an actor's strike. The final film, shot entirely on a soundstage, mostly in a single elaborate set, was the result of many compromises and last-minute solutions. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's actually very good, possessing its own special kind of energy and personal meaning, more controlled and slightly more serious than what O'Brien presented in Rocky Horror. As Jay Hoberman and Jonathan Rosenbaum point out in their book Midnight Movies, O'Brien, instead of creating something in celebration, has created something in response. It's a work responding to changes both in his own life, having become a kind of celebrity, and to changes in culture, the liberated and progressive swing of the 70s having given way to a new conservatism in the 80s. His script is clever, presenting the suburban American ideal as the sterile, artificial construction of a television studio, a space which, significantly, doubles as an asylum. His musical numbers, just as fun and catchy as Rocky Horror, showcase an expanding talent. There's a larger variety to the music, and more ideas at work behind the songs. Numbers like Denton USA, Me of Me, Look What I Did to My Id, and the eponymous Shock Treatment not only work harmoniously to tell the film's story, they offer insightful comments on mass media, exploring the seductive narcissism of image and the way it's been hijacked by what we've come to know as reality television, long before such a concept actually existed. Other songs, like Little Black Dress, are just good old-fashioned reminders of how exciting it is for people of every gender to dress up and look pretty. Jim Sharman, director of Rocky Horror on both stage and screen, outdoes himself in the visual design of the film, employing creative angles, extended tracking shots, and saturated lighting. He makes excellent use of his limitations. His extensive background in theater likely informed the confident way he works with the enclosed space, giving each musical sequence its own specific look and feel, staging scenes to utilize every last nook and cranny of his multifaceted set. I even think the performances are better than they're given credit for. We do feel the absence of a Tim Curry, but this ensemble holds its own. O'Brien, Patricia Quinn, Charles Gray, and Nell Campbell are all having a blast in their new roles. Newcomers like Barry Humphries fit right in with the veterans, and Harper and DeYoung give their own playful spin on Janet and Brad. In short, there's a lot to love here. Shock Treatment's many strengths have not been given the recognition they deserve because of the massive shadow left by the first film. I don't think that's fair to the artists. Any great film deserves to be judged by its own merits. Shock Treatment is available on DVD from 20th Century Fox. It hasn't been reissued nearly as many times as its predecessor, so it might be a little harder to track down. As far as I'm aware, it's only been released on Blu-ray in the UK, courtesy of Arrow Video. Considering the impressive visuals on display in this film, I'm sure it would look fantastic in high definition. So I hope we get an official North American disc as soon as possible.